Um, and I like to keep it real. So usually something always goes wrong the day I'm doing something, which has happened today. But that's okay. It just shows that we're all real, and you just kind of roll with the punches. I something really stressful every time I'm doing a class. It just like I send out the wrong link. I set up the wrong Zoom, which is what I did. I looked after I had sent you guys the Zoom for this morning. I was like, oh, cool. So I like scheduled that on Sunday. So now I have to set up another one. And it's just, there's so many moving parts to just setting all this up. So I appreciate you bearing with me, and I'm so glad you're here. And I have a great presentation for you today, but I also wanted to just say hello, like my full face before I put on the screen. And so, yeah, so for those of you that I haven't met, welcome. My name is Erica, as you probably already know. I'm here in Indiana. It is a beautiful summer day. I'm in my kitchen, and hopefully no one bothers us. The only people that really could bother us are my dog, and sometimes he does start barking. And if that happens, I'm just going to pray that he stops. So I'm going to give it just another minute, and be thinking of your questions. Like if you came with questions, write them down right now. I'm going to have a section at the end where I'm just going to take whatever you want to throw at me. I'll take it. Even if it's not like directly related to what we talk about today. I'm an open book on all things, freelance writing, pitching, even social media stuff. So I'll go as long as I can. I do have to pick up my son in 2 hours from breakdancing camp. So I would go forever if I could, but eventually I do have to pick him up. So there's that. Okay. I'm drinking coffee. I don't know that I did the mute thing for everybody. So if you're not on mute, please do put yourself on mute. That's another thing I need to start prepping in advance. And if we have questions, if I say I'm going to put something in the chat or whatever, Kim is going to do that. So you look for Kim's name and she'll have it. Let's check out the chat and make sure it can actually work though. Are you guys able to chat? Can you send messages in the chat? Yes. Okay. You're seeing each other's. Okay, cool. Because last time I did this, that wasn't working. And I was like, I can't figure this out in real time. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. All right, cool. Well, I will go ahead and get started. I don't want to waste your time. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up my presentation. So give me just 1 second to find that and we will get going. Okay. And like I said, I probably won't be able to see questions while I'm talking. So just save those till the end, and I will get to them then. All right, cool. I'm gonna hit share screen. Okay, screen sharing. Now I need to present. All right, awesome. Should I put myself back on the screen? Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna put myself on the screen. Okay, I think we're good, guys. All right, Pitching 101, a crash course. Pitch and Publish Writing Company. That is my company that I founded about a year ago, and I've had so much fun teaching people about freelance writing. And so I want to teach you about that today. So if you're new to me, I am a freelance writer. I'm the author of 2 books, 2 traditionally published books, one that came out this past January. I have been published in a variety of publications from the New York Times to Christianity Today, multiple times over. And I've been married to my husband, Rick, for 10 years. And I'm a mom of 2 kids that are 5 and 7. And I call myself a multi-passionate creative. I'm an Enneagram 4, if that means anything to you. Super creative. Again, I think that's part of why I have tech problems, because I'm not a techie person. I'm more of like the big idea type of person. And so sometimes you just got to deal with some of those things when that's sort of where you live and where your mindset is. Here's what we're going to talk about today. I did a run through of this and I'm going to try to keep it in time. I do tend to talk fast sometimes, so forgive me if I do that. I just want to make sure we can get through all of the things that we want to cover today. Let's make sure. I'm just checking the chat, make sure. Yeah. So to me, yeah, it's a total of 90 minutes. I know Kim answered you, but yeah, So, but you will, some of you I know have gotten the replay. Those that haven't, there will be an option to get it if you want it. So don't worry about any of that. I'm going to send a recap email with everything we talked about, all the things I promised, all the links, all the things. So we're going to talk today about 4 things: types of pitches, pitching framework, tips, tricks, and hacks. And I have some case studies. So I have some actual email pitches that were sent, that were successful, that worked. And I'm going to talk about why they worked, what it is about them that made them successful, which I think can be some of the most helpful type of thing that you do, because you can really see what's actually happening, and not what are we not just talking about, but what's actually working and actually happening. So I do encourage you to take notes. I know for me, it really helps to just kind of type down like sort of highlights and high points of what's going on in webinars. So if that's you, I hope that you will take some notes. So let's get going. All right. So I thought it'd be fun to start with a few facts about freelancing, because I don't think people realize this. But freelance writing and freelancing in general has been increasing like crazy in this post-COVID world. COVID made it much easier, and freelancers became much more trusted than ever before. And so nearly half of the workforce are freelancers, or either part-time or full-time. And I thought this was a fascinating statistic that freelancers earned $1.35 trillion in revenue last year, which is, I don't even know, that number is like hard to compute. And the thing that I love about freelancing is that freelancers cite more satisfaction in their jobs and work-life balance. And they cite flexibility and opportunity as the top reasons why they do what they do. And I will tell you, I resonate with all of that, having come from, more than 15 years working a traditional job. The flexibility and opportunities to pursue the things I want to pursue as a freelancer have been key to why I stay in this profession. Like, I have no interest in going back to a traditional job for those reasons. Also, the average freelancer in the United States earns over $62,000 a year, which, depending on where you live, of course, if it's 62,000 is one thing. If you live in New York, 62,000 is another thing. If you live in Arkansas, but regardless, I think that's a pretty decent number to say, hey, maybe this is something that I could actually do. And also to remember that that's just an average, but the potential is actually endless. And then 66% of freelancers who left their full-time jobs now make more money than they did before. And I didn't write this down, but the study I saw said they started making that much within a year of leaving their full-time job. So I think that's really interesting, something I wouldn't have known before I walked into this. And so let's jump into pitches. Part 1, types of pitches. So before I get into the nitty-gritty, I want to talk to you about the kinds of pitches we're doing today. So there's 2 genres of pitching that I'm going to talk about today. One is more of the traditional publishing type of pitch. So that's a magazine, a newspaper, maybe even a sort of just like an online publication. So I'm going to give you some examples of those in a second. And then the second genre is sort of your more traditional freelance writing pitch. This is going to be more copywriting, content writing type of thing that's kind of not quite as fun and exciting as, say, pitching your work to Glamour magazine, but I do think both are important and relevant to folks that want to actually make a living or make a decent amount of money doing this freelance writing thing. So I'm going to get more into that in a moment, but let's start here. What is a pitch? Okay, I'm sure you have an idea of that, or you wouldn't be here, but I do want to just sort of lay the groundwork. And a pitch is, definition 1 is the traditional writing pitch. So a concise and persuasive email, pretty much always an email. I don't really know people that send snail mail pitches anymore these days. So a concise and persuasive email sent by a writer to a media outlet, magazine, or website. It introduces the editor or media outlet to the writer's proposed article or story idea, outlining the relevance, the unique angle, and the potential value to the publication's readership. So important to remember that this isn't just about us and our ideas, but the reader and why they're going to benefit from our idea. Also, to know about traditional writing pitches, you want to have a curiosity-driven subject line, a brief summary of the article with a key list of key points, and the writer's qualifications or expertise on the subject matter. And so that doesn't mean you want to give like a 5-paragraph bio of yourself, but if you are trying to write an article on something related to, say, breast cancer. If you've had breast cancer, you want to mention that. If you are a nurse, you want to mention that. So giving yourself every possibility to show the editor like why you're a good person to write on this subject. So we want to capture the editor's attention, showcase our writing skills and knowledge, and convince the editor to commission the article for publication. That's, I think, really key here to think when we are emailing editors, we are there. We have a job to do. We have a job to convince them that our idea is important. It's important right now. Readers are going to like it, and that there's a reason that we should be writing it, like us personally. Like we're not just some random person that wants to write about, why the grass is growing more this summer. Maybe we have a certification in grass growing. Obviously that doesn't exist, but you know what I mean? Make yourself relevant. So here are examples of places that you might pitch for a traditional publication. Newspapers, USA Today, The Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, magazines, Glamour, Good Housekeeping, Time, and websites, Scary Mommy, The Rumpus, and The Dad. These are obviously just a very limited amount of places that I've put here up on the screen, but just to give you an example, these are the kinds of places that I'm talking about. Insert your own newspaper, magazines, or websites that you can think of, and that's what I'm talking about. So moving on to the second definition of a pitch, and this is for the traditional freelance work. So we're talking copywriting, content writing, the kind of stuff that maybe isn't going to be something that you're bragging about to everyone, but is going to make you income, and it's going to use your skills as a writer. So this definition means it's a pitch to obtain freelance copywriting work as a targeted and persuasive proposal submitted by the writer to potential clients or businesses seeking writing services. So a little bit more buttoned up, a little bit less creative a lot of times. But you're often pitching someone that's going to be able to pay you a little more. It's going to be a little bit more detailed of a process. So in these kinds of pitches, you're going to want to showcase your skills as a copywriter, your experience, your creativity, address the specific needs and goals of the client. What are they looking for? What can you do for them? And help yourself stand out from other people that are pitching. So there's going to be a lot of people pitching these places, and it's hard to stand out. So you need to think about, how does your portfolio or how does your email make you seem different or more suited for this particular job at this particular place? Now, I mentioned portfolio. We're probably not going to have time to get super in detail into the portfolio side of things, but this is not a difficult thing to put together. I have an example. I will actually go ahead and send that out to you in the post class email of a portfolio put together on Canva. Canva is my best friend. I use it for everything I do. And you can do the same and create a really nice looking portfolio that you can use if you're submitting to a freelance, definition number 2 of a freelance pitch. Here are a couple of things that pitches for a traditional freelance writing client might include: a captivating introduction, a brief overview of the industry of the person that you want to work for, making sure that they sort of understand making sure they understand that you know what you're talking about when it comes to their industry or product, that you're not just some random person that knows absolutely nothing. You want to show them that you get their target audience and that you're going to be able to speak to their needs. And then a proposal outlining the services you offer and the benefits of working with you. Like, what are the things you're going to do for them? And you want to get specific, because a lot of times what I find with some of these kinds of clients is that they almost need to be told what they need. And so you can come in and say, oh, I see, something, noticing something about their blog. Oh, your blog isn't updated very much. Like, as part of, working with you, I can update your blog with 500-word blog posts once a week about XYZ. And so depending on the niche, depending on the business or organization or nonprofit, whatever it is, you want to get specific about how you can help them. And you can really make yourself stand out that way, because so many people are sending them generic pitches to work for them. Okay. All right. Examples of where you might be pitching for this kind of thing. A little bit more broad of targets here, but just for some examples: nonprofits, small businesses, agencies, e-commerce sites, professional websites. If you want to take a screenshot of this just to save it, you can. But all of these places are looking for freelance writers to supplement all kinds of freelance writing needs. And so start putting those on your radar if you're interested in doing more work like this, because it is the kind of work that you can really begin to make a substantial income from your freelance writing. Okay, so you may be wondering, like, why are we covering these two different genres of pitching? I know some people come into my classes and my email list, and some are interested in that content writing. Some are more interested in that side of things where they want to see their names and bylines published in big magazines and publications. But for me, it's the combination of the two that has been like the golden ticket to my, I guess you would say, freedom and happiness. That's a little bit bold of a way to put it, but I make about 50 to 70% of my my income from the sort of money-making clients, the copywriting, sort of social media copy type of clients, and then 25 to 50%. And this is literally, that's just a guess. I don't actually have that calculated, but that's my sort of, rough estimate, 20 to 50% from the more value-based writing, which is the writing I do that is something that is more meaningful to me, that I want to be able to do. And so how did I get to this position? Because you may be thinking that's something that you want to do as well. Well, I always wanted to do more value-based writing that was higher profile, got more readers about topics I cared about. This picture of me here is the first time I got published in the Wall Street Journal. And I mean, talk about dream come true. That was like one of the most exciting days of my life, because I had never imagined that was something that I could actually do. And I knew this was sort of more toward the beginning of this process about 4 years ago. I said, I knew I want to be able to do more of that. The problem is it takes a lot of time to pitch, or not, it doesn't take a lot of time to pitch, but it takes a lot of time to be really thoughtful and to actually write really good stuff. When I had a 9-to-5 job, I didn't have time to do that. And so when I went freelance, it allowed me that opportunity to make the money I needed in less time, and then gave me the time that was necessary for these big pitches and to land bigger pieces. And so I'm trying to come up with a name for this little formula that I've concocted, but basically do the writing, letting someone in the room, sorry. Do the writing that you need to do to make money so that you can do the writing that you want to do that's more fulfilling, that also makes money, but often not as much. Now, I just want to make a distinction here that I don't dislike the money, the copywriting, the content writing. I don't dislike that. I do enjoy it. I like writing. I'm a good writer. It's easy for me. And so that's just a benefit. I think, I just want to emphasize for anyone here to note that if you're here, you probably like writing, you're probably pretty good at it. And that's a skill that not everyone has. And so I'm so glad that you're here wanting to capitalize on that. So let's get into the actual pitches. Once again, I'm not seeing the chat. So if you have chats, Kim can answer your questions for me, because I'm so grateful that she's here to help. So I will look at the chat once we get to questions. Okay. I could talk forever, guys. Let me take a drink. All right, we're going to spend most of the pitching conversation here in the cold pitch, because the cold pitch is what requires the most strategizing, the most finesse, but also is the most, is probably where you're going to get most of your clients or most of your bylines, because that's just how it is. So cold pitch means that you have no relationship at all with the person you're pitching. It's key to remember that editors, and even editors on these websites that are like businesses and agencies, are flooded with pitches and leads. And you may only have a few seconds to make an impression, which is why it's so important that you sort of follow almost like a style guide of how this is going to work. So the anatomy of a cold pitch here. So we're going to break these down, but just to show you what's to come. Part 1, first impressions. Part 2, the essentials. Part 3, the evidence. So let me go through these things one by one. First impressions. So really important, first of all, to find the right editors or contact's personal email address. Those of you that have taken Bragworthy bylines, which I know a few of you are here, know that this is like this is the first thing that I stress when I start talking about pitching. I think a lot of us, especially if we're new to pitching, we're like, we find the submissions email, we find the submittable place on the publication website. Oh, submit here, submit at submissions@washingtonpost.com. I would almost never recommend submitting in that way. There are exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, you want to find the right editor for the right section of whatever the place is that you're trying to write for. Now, when it comes to publications, magazines, newspapers, that's usually something that you can do without too much sweat off your brow about it. Again, we don't have time to deep dive that, but a couple of things I'll just mention is just try Googling. Twitter is an awesome place to find contact info. Googling the masthead of a publication will often take you to the name of the editor at least. And then sometimes you're able to figure out what the email is based on that. Many times publications, their email addresses are, so-and-so at nytimes.com. So you may just need that first name dot last name at nytimes.com, and you can guess the right combination. This is something that we really go into detail in my course. But nevertheless, I just want to let you know that you can find a personal email address. And if you have a question about that later, just bring it up in the Q&A and I will answer it. You want an exceptional subject line, really important. Think about that finger stopping, that thumb stopping type of thing, just even for yourself looking through social media. Editors are getting so many emails. So what is that subject line that's going to draw their attention and make them click it and open it? You also want to send it at the right time. Like I would never send a pitch at 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, because that is probably going to get lost. Optimal time to send a pitch pretty much for anyone is like in the morning. And so I tend to send pitches, if I can, around 8 a.m. on more towards the beginning of the week. That's much more likely to be seen and get a reply. Okay, so number 2, the essentials. You want an expertly crafted opening line. Again, just like the subject line, the first sentence of your pitch is really important because yes, you've gotten them to open it, but you got to get them to keep reading to get to your actual idea. So whichever kind of pitch you're sending, I think this is really important because you want that person to keep reading. And again, I'm going to show you some examples of this later. You want to then provide evidence that your idea, your skills are needed. Whether that is the idea for the magazine you're pitching or the skills that you're presenting to a nonprofit or a business that is seeking freelance writers. Number 3, address why it's important, your story specifically, why it's important now, and why are you an optimal person for this job or this particular story. Now, I know I'm sort of conflating the two kinds of pitches, but I do think that these elements matter for both. Because you're making it timely, you're making it relevant, and that's always really important and a strong and effective way to get someone to pay attention to you and respond to you. And so then showcase your ability to do or complete the job or story. So within a pitch, you want to show evidence basically that you have what it takes to do the story, whether that's information or access, whatever that may be, or the job, showcasing your experience, giving examples, and things like that. So those are things to remember as you are pitching. Part 3 for the cold pitch is the evidence. So for publications, you want to provide evidence, data, and or examples to prove that your idea is a story worth diving into. And so when you're pitching these publications, it's great. You can have like, I want to write about ice skating. Okay, well, that's not really a story, right? You need to prove that whatever it is you want to write about, there's something going on that makes that worth writing about, whether that is new data that came out, whether that is, a trend that you're seeing, like that has 2 or 3 examples to show that this is actually happening. You want to sort of make the case, and I think I talk about this later, but you want to make the case that this story is something that is unique, it's happening, and the readers of this publication are going to be interested in it. For organizations, when we talk about the evidence, show how your past work and ideas are original to the organization, how you can help them specifically. It's not about like, oh, well, I've worked with lots of nonprofits. It's about I am dedicated to working with the American Cancer Society because this is important to me. And here's how, I'm going to specifically help you. And then for both, make sure you're presenting relevant past work examples or related experience, which I think sometimes people can overthink this. They think, oh, well, I've never done this very specific thing before. Don't overthink that. Even if you are a brand new freelance writer, you have been writing most of your life. And I guarantee you there are ways that you can present your experience as a person who is a good writer in a way that will work for a pitch. All right, so important things to remember about cold pitches. The vast majority of freelance work starts out as a cold pitch. Like most freelancers will tell you that majority of their work comes from cold pitches. So you have every opportunity just like they do. Second, editors and leads, they want pitches because they want good people for their publication or their business. I have a tendency, or I did have a tendency, to think of editors as like scary people who were annoyed by me and wanted to tell me no because I'm like, oh, they're probably so annoyed by one more pitch. But you have to remember that they don't want the same old people pitching them all the time. Their job is to go out there and find good stuff to put in their publication or to get on their blog or whatever it may be. And so when you come to an editor with a great pitch, you're doing them a favor. And so think of it that way. It's a mindset shift that really helped me. And then cold pitching can be intimidating, but you get used to it with practice. 100%. I remember the first few cold pitches I sent out were like very scary. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't. And my first pitches were pretty bad, but I would have never gotten better at them had I not started with the bad ones. And so I say, you start out not doing them super well. But you're actually going to do them better because you're taking this class. I didn't have this class when I started pitching. So just the more you do it, the better you get at it. Now, where do you find opportunities for cold pitching? Well, content sites like Upwork, LinkedIn, your personal networks, your professional networks, job boards, freelance job emails. The one I would recommend is Sonia Weiser's Opportunities of the Week email. That is one of the most popular ones that has a lot of good stuff on it. Study Hall, the Study Hall listserv. This is actually a group that just opened up again. They used to be open, and I'm not totally up to speed on what exactly they're doing right now. But if you just like Google Study Hall listserv, I believe they have a membership, and it's really jam-packed full of freelance opportunities, networking, even things like fellowships and other educational opportunities. Highly recommend checking that out. I'm also a member of the Society of Professional Journalists, which I don't think you have to prove you're any kind of, official journalist to join. I think you just have to pay like annual membership fee, which is very low. And they have exclusive opportunities within their email list and on their website and all kinds of other stuff. So just sort of getting sort of baked into the world of freelance will start to pop up opportunities that you didn't even know were there. So that is the cold pitch. I'll have a few more details on that later, but I want to move on to the warm pitch. Now, the warm pitch and the hot pitch, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because they're actually not that difficult. So the warm pitch is to someone that you may have pitched before, like, oh, hey, nice to talk to you again, or something where you have some kind of connection, where you can bring that into the pitch. Like, oh, I know you've worked with my friend so-and-so. As long as your friend gives you the permission to say that. You never want to like invoke someone's name unless they've given you permission, because there's a lot of editor email trading that goes around in the freelance world. Like people are very generous with giving out the emails of editors, but they don't want you to say, oh, I got your email from so-and-so. Like that's just like an unspoken rule. But anyway, a warm pitch is someone you have had a connection with in some way. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm letting people in. This is pitching when you've seen that they're looking for pitches and they're accepting them specifically, maybe. So for example, if you've seen on a listserv that, Marie Claire magazine is this particular editor who's given their email on this listserv is saying, I am accepting pitches for, proposal stories for the month of June, please email them here. That would actually be a warm pitch because you'd say, I saw your query that you're looking for pitches for proposals for the month of June. I'm so excited because I have a great story for you. So I would consider that a warm pitch. And then any other kind of affiliation, it's warm. It's not like ice cold. And it always is a good feeling when you have something to sort of connect, because even that the smallest bit of personal connection can kind of make an editor more likely to even just like read your email. And then there's the hot pitch. A hot pitch is someone you know pretty well or have a good relationship with. So for example, this might be former clients, your personal network, that could be even friends and family connection that introduces you directly. So if a friend says, oh yeah, like my editor at so-and-so is looking for people that have, you know, your sort of perspective on this, can I introduce you? So they might introduce you, and then you would send your pitch, and that would be a hot pitch simply because you've had that really direct and powerful connection. Maybe someone you work with regularly. So I'm a columnist for World Magazine. So whenever I send a pitch, which I'm going to show you one of those, it's like pretty short and easy to get an acceptance because I work with them all the time and they know my work and they trust my ideas. So that would be a hot pitch. I know a couple of people have joined, just FYI, I can't see the chat right now. So as soon as we get to Q&A, I will answer questions. All right, let's talk about pitching framework. 5 top tips we're going to go over real quick. Superior subject line, bait 'em and hook 'em, the cold pitch finesse, the data advantage, and remembering that there are no new ideas. I think sometimes I hear people talking about, well, I just don't have any original ideas. Well, welcome to the world. There really are no original ideas. It's just a matter of how you package them, the examples you find to represent maybe a different perspective. So let's talk about superior subject lines. So this is simple stuff, but I think really important. So when you're writing a freelance pitch, you want to write in the subject line before your awesome subject line that's going to be making them click. You want to write freelance pitch. Why do you want to write that? Because you want to distinguish yourself. You want to make sure you're sort of filed away and categorized as a freelance pitch, because you don't want to be mistaken for PR companies. PR people, we all get those emails. Editors don't really want those emails. You're not a PR company. You're an actual freelance writer, and you want to make sure they know that. So I personally always put freelance pitch : and then I put, you know, whatever my crazy good subject line is. And so for that crazy good subject line, you want to cultivate curiosity. Ask a non-obvious question as your subject line, or state a fact that makes the editor want to click in and learn more. Just something, you don't want to lie, obviously. You don't want to be like a clickbait person where they're like, oh, why did I click that? But something that's interesting or timely, like you connect it to something that's happening right now. And on that note, time sensitive. You want to make sure an editor knows if your pitch is time sensitive, because obviously that may result in them actually opening it, or maybe it's something they're looking for. Maybe you're giving them a piece that they actually were hoping they would get in. Now, don't overuse it, don't abuse it, don't do it if it's not really time sensitive, but use it when you mean it. All right, so bait 'em and hook 'em. So we're baiting them with that subject line, right? But how do we hook them in? Well, new research or studies are always good. Like, okay, a study that came out of Cambridge last week says that XYZ, proving the point of the story that you want to make. That's a great hook. You could also be debunking a common myth. So, you know, I should have come up with an example, and now I'm blanking, but you know, a common myth, like most people think, most newborns don't sleep through the night, but a little known fact is that if you do this thing, you can always get your newborn to sleep through the night. That's not real. I made that up. My newborns did not sleep through the night. So I just made that up as an example. Also explaining a little known fact. So for example, I just did a pitch about, I want to write something about how breakdancing is coming back into style. Yes, you can blame my son for his breakdancing classes, because I'm like totally into breakdancing now. So in a pitch about that, I might say, what you didn't know is that breakdancing has actually exploded back into popularity just in the past 2 years. And here's the interesting reason why, right? Another thing you can do is showcase your grasp on the story, show the editor that you have like a really wide-ranging knowledge, that you're connected with people that can actually contribute good stuff to the story. And then represent that you have access to experts, evidence, examples. So for this breakdancing example, I was like, actually, I am able to I'm connected with a girl who's actually slated to possibly be on the very first breakdancing team for the 2024 Olympics. The breakdancing is going to the Olympics for the first time in 2024. And so I was like, I actually have access to her and could interview her. So that's kind of a cool thing that I was able to add. Now I will be upfront with you here. That pitch got ignored by the person I sent it to. And so I need to send it somewhere else. I actually sent that pitch to the New York Times and the editor did not respond. I followed up. He did not respond. So I'm going to be sending it somewhere else. I just haven't gotten it together and done it yet. And so build your case for the story. I mean, I think it's important when you read over your pitches that you're about to send to editors, like, have you made the case to them why this story matters for their audience, why this story matters now? Do you have the evidence to back up what you're saying? And I know that can be difficult to sort of concisely put that all together, but that is part of the art of writing a good pitch. All right. So I wanted to include this. I found it in some of my research. So Eric Sullivan, features editor at Esquire, says a great hook looks for wording that is both attention grabbing and explanatory, that uses lively language and includes just 5 to 7 words that guarantees what follows is worth reading. And I would apply this quote to the opening line of your pitch. So maybe you want to screenshot this and remember it for later. The cold pitch finesse. So let's talk a little bit more about the details of a cold pitch. Sorry, I'm just checking the time there. Cold pitching can be a numbers game. So just like the more that you do, the higher a chance that you're going to get something. Now that can be exhausting and overwhelming for some people to think about, but for others, it can be freeing just to know that if they do more pitching, they're more likely going to land something. And so I like to throw that out there, and as just a reminder that the more you do, the higher likelihood and the better you're going to get at it. Secondly, cold pitching is also a long-term strategy. So just because you pitch and get rejected doesn't mean that that was like a total failure or a waste of time. Cold pitching is a long-term strategy because you're planting seeds and starting relationships. So even if an editor or a person at that business or agency is saying not right now, or that's not right for us, that does not mean that that's never going to work out. Ultimately, they become a warm pitch after that, right? So they've rejected you or said no or whatever. But then next time there's a need, next time you have a story idea, you come back to them and you're like, oh, hey again, right? And so that's warm. That gives you something to work with more than what you had the first time. Always have fresh data at your fingertips. I'm going to give you some ideas on that. People that have been through Brag Worthy Bylines, you know that I am obsessed with data and having it. And I think that can be the key to so many stories, and people forget about it. I don't know how. I see it all the time, but that data can be the key to unlocking a yes for you. Look in a variety of spots to find potential places to cold pitch. So don't just look at the same things all the time. All of those places I mentioned before, if you spent like 30 minutes a week, even a month, going through and like pitching some of those places, you're going to be doing better than you were before. Lastly, detach from the outcome and keep moving. That's something that I found to be very important as a freelance writer, especially when I'm pitching magazines and newspapers. You cannot hang your everything on a pitch. Like, you kind of have to pitch your pitch and then move on to the next thing, so you're not thinking about it. Because sometimes it takes a week or two or longer to get a yes or a no or whatever. And sometimes, this is the worst when this happens, you actually write a story and then it could get killed, killing the story. What do they call it? A kill fee. So this happened to me one time. I wrote a full story for a publication. It was accepted. And then sort of there was like a shift, like the news, something happened with the news. There was a shift in what they were going to focus on, and they killed my story. And I got a kill fee, which means I got half the pay of what I would have gotten had it been published. But then I was then free to take that story and try to get it published elsewhere. And so that's hard. That's a really hard thing. But we have to detach from the outcome, keep moving, keep trying, and recognize that we're never really done. We just keep going. So a couple of things, I don't know why I put together just a little graphic because I thought it was fun. But just things to remember when you're talking about cold pitching. You want to have fresh data. You want to have good examples. You want to diversify your platform search when you're, looking for new opportunities. You want to be unique in how you present your offer. Get on those job email lists. Remember the timing side of things. Remember to find the right person to email, that right editor, be a part of private communities that can be your network of support. Pay attention to the details of that particular publication, that particular organization, and the numbers game. Don't pitch one place and, you know, pray and hope that it's going to work out. And then 2 weeks later, you get a rejection. Well, then you've spent 2 weeks, then you get a rejection, then you're feeling sad and discouraged. And that's not a good cycle to be in. So I would say if you send out a big pitch, I would say like send out another one within a day or two, just so you don't have everything emotionally riding on that original pitch that you sent out. Okay, let's talk about the data advantage. Data is my secret weapon, and I think it can be yours too. So fresh studies are out weekly from a million different places. It's just kind of like knowing where to look and paying attention. One thing that I didn't put on this slide deck is doing Google notifications. So if you have a particular niche or a subject area that you're wanting the fresh data coming out on, you could do a Google alert for that, keyword alert for that. But the great thing about data is it backs up your ideas. Like it gives you something foundational and concrete to showcase that your idea actually is based in something and not just your own thoughts. New data in your niche or industry can spoon feed you story ideas. Because most people are not sitting there poring over the latest Pew Research report, you can spend time looking over the stuff that matters to you and pulling out those interesting pieces that other people aren't going to see. I've gotten so many ideas just from sitting there looking at a piece of data and going, that's so interesting. I mean, that is the genesis of my last book. I was reading some data that probably most people wouldn't have read. And I thought, and I found this one thing and I was like, this is weird. I don't feel like anyone's talking about this. Took that idea, ran with it. Eventually, it's like in my book proposal, was the basis of my book proposal. Long story short, now the book is out. So that's what I'm saying. Data is powerful. And it's easy to find rarely reported data by subscribing to internal publications or paying small amounts for deep dives. Here are some places that you can find data. So I won't read through everything. You can take a screenshot if you want, but there's way more than this. There are research institutes at basically every major university that you can get stuff on. I just wanted to give you some examples of where to find it. Most of what I find, I'm Googling keywords plus data. I am sometimes going directly to these websites, especially if it's faith-based stuff like Barna or Lifeway, because that's not always coming up as quite high in the search as some of these other ones. And I write a lot about faith-based stuff. So, but here are just some examples. And I didn't even know about some of these until recently. So another great place for not just data, but ideas is looking at Reddit, looking at Quora. I personally haven't really used Discord, but I know people are using it more, not to find like hard data, but to just find trends. Obviously TikTok, you can find trends too. So just kind of think outside the box on this and know that if you need to back up your idea with data, you can probably find it with a little bit of work, little bit of legwork. And so let's remember that there are no new ideas. Like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's interesting. I heard somebody say once, like, what would be your best advice to the younger generation? And the person's advice was read older books, because what you'll find is if you read older books, you'll be like, oh, I just read about that in a more recent book. And it's because it's true. There are new seasons, there are new stories and perspectives, there's new evidence, there are new ways of explaining things, there are new cultures and technologies, but ultimately, like the basic truths of humanity and the things that we base all of our bigger ideas on are not changing. It's just how are we able to take those and shape those from our unique angles and perspectives. Okay, so let's talk about what it could happen after you send your pitch. It's good to think about the whole story. So you could be ignored, you could be rejected, but maybe they say, please pitch again, which by the way, if someone tells you to please pitch again, that's like really good news. That means they liked how you pitched and they like the way you think, wasn't right for them right now. But when someone tells me to please pitch again, I'm happy. That's a real win for me. You might be told that they're interested, but they want to see more developed proposal. a finished story or more details. Occasionally there are places that will only take full articles, and that's fine. There's maybe a little bit of a different approach that we could talk about in the Q&A if you want. And then lastly, maybe you get accepted. Oh my gosh. What do you know? You could actually be accepted. That would be amazing. So those are the things that could happen. So get that on your mind. And I thought this was interesting. I love this stat. 75% of pieces commissioned by New York Times editor Tim Herrera 1 year were from first-time writers for the New York Times. And I have heard this time and again from big-time editors. They have no problem publishing first-time writers, not only first-time writers for their sites, but first-time freelance writers bylines. Now it's hard for first-timers because they don't know how to pitch, right? Like that's why you're here. You're learning more about how to pitch, but the opportunity is there. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be anyone special. You just have to have the right idea. And I think there's so much freedom and opportunity and just like inspiration in that fact that I just love it so much. So we've been talking a lot more about the magazine side of things. Let me take a drink. All right, so tips for copywriting and content writing. I won't spend too much time on this, but I did want to go over a few more things on this. So when you're talking about pitching for content and copywriting, the more lucrative side of freelance writing, you might want to get away from Upwork. You might want to get a little bit nichey with it. So what is your focus? Don't be like, being a generalist is never going to be the best option for you. Now, when you're first getting started, you might want to try different things for sure. But I love the analogy of like a general. So if you think about a doctor, like a generalized doctor, like a family doctor, they probably make the least money of the doctors. Whereas the more specialized you get, like you're a neurosurgeon or whatever, that is the place where you're going to have more lucrative opportunities. And I would say the same goes for freelance writing. Now that we don't have time to get into the niche side of things, but just something to think about. Tip number 2, using your networks, social media, use it to your advantage. Some people love it. Some people hate it, but it can really be helpful. Emails, just emailing people. Something that I do when I'm looking for new work on this side of things is I might email some of the people I know that are very well connected and say like, hey, how's it going? Hey, just FYI, I actually have some openings this quarter for new clients, freelance writing clients. If you know anyone, keep my name in mind, or are you guys looking for anything? Because the thing is, and maybe you have this in your life, people come to me pretty frequently. Oh, do you know anyone that does this? Because it's really hard to get out there and find someone. It's hard to get out there on Upwork. It's hard to get out there and recruit someone to do a job, someone like a stranger from the internet. Everyone would rather have someone that knows someone they know. So you need to just be communicating to your networks that you are available and what you're available for. And it's who you know that matters in this industry, and that is still true. Tip number 3, let's get specific. So create a specific offer. You don't want to tell people, hey, yeah, I'm a freelance writer. I can write stuff. It's like, oh, I write SEO content, or I can write launch copy for your next product launch, or I can help you write better emails for your email newsletter. So get specific with the kinds of freelance writing offers that you can give so that people are going to think of you when they need those things. Otherwise, you're just going to be one more person in the crowd. Tell people what you can actually do for them. And remember that you aren't begging for a job. You could be an answered prayer for them. You may be exactly what they're looking for. And sometimes they don't even know exactly what they need you for. But once you have a conversation, and you look at their website, you can actually tell them why they need you, and then they'll sort of be begging you to work for them. Tip number 4, use your brain. People often have no idea what they need. You're going to tell them and prove to them why it matters. So what I find is when I worked with organizations and things, sometimes I'll come in to do one thing. Okay, I'm coming in to do social media management, right? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like their website is a mess, or their email newsletters are horrific. And I'm able to say, hey, what would you think? I have some ideas for this. What do you think about this? And then I'm able to actually add what's the word I'm looking for? Duties onto what I'm already doing for them, and add cost to that. And I make more money that way. And then what is the goal of the business, organization, or company? Show them how your work is going to help them get closer to reaching their goals. Oh, guys, I'm going long. Okay, we're going to get there. Tip number 5, be the star student. When you're looking for a new position, were you ever told to send handwritten thank you notes as a kid for whatever reason? Well, that's still a thing. How can you stand out and be different than other people that are trying to get this particular job? If you create a stellar optimized resume or portfolio that is really optimized toward that particular client you're trying to get, that's going to help you stand out. I think handwritten thank you notes are still a really good way to stand out because hardly anyone does that anymore. I think I heard once of I don't know, this is probably going way too far, but somebody sent like a client like some cupcakes or something. So that's kind of silly stuff, but just something to think about if that's your personality. So let's sum up the elements of a good pitch, and then we're going to get to some of the pitches, and then I'm going to get to your questions. So make sure we kind of went over this, but let's go over it again. You're sending your pitch to the right person. You're personalizing and customizing the pitch to the editor and the publication or the business. It couldn't just be sent to any place. Every pitch needs to be like, this is for this particular place. Number 3, you're showing why you are the person to write this piece or do this job. Number 4, you've got the evidence and data to make the point that you're trying to make to persuade them. Number 5, you've got the timeliness of a hook or a reason that they need you right now or this particular story right now. And number 6, you have links to past relevant work experience in there, a way to get in touch with you again. Okay, so let's talk about a few emails. This is probably we're probably not gonna have time to go through all of these, but I am actually gonna be sending everyone that came today, I'm gonna be sending out all of these to you as a PDF so you can look over them yourself, but let's go over a few. So cold pitch, this is my cold pitch I was talking about earlier to the New York Times. So yeah, so you can see here that my opening line is I'm telling him exactly like, so let me just give you some context. He was doing a call out for pitches. So if I was doing a flat out cold pitch where like I didn't even see the call out, I would probably not say, I'd like to write a story for Styles. I would probably just go straight into the pitch. But because I saw that he was calling out for this particular section, I wanted to acknowledge that I had seen that. So just an FYI on that. But you can see that I pack a lot here into this first sentence. And I think the really relevant point I made was that it's going to be the newest Olympic sport in the 2024 Paris Games. That makes it really relevant. And that's a hook into like, okay, that's interesting. Like why would this be something that we might want to cover? And then I kind of go on to encapsulate, and I'm going to talk about how it unifies people across culture, race, and class. And then I'm a big fan. You probably noticed in my emails and in this presentation, I'm kind of obsessed with bulleted lists, but I think they're so great for readability. And again, you're remembering that editors don't have a lot of time. And so I wanted to break this down for him so that he could kind of glance at it and see that maybe this is something he would want to publish. And so that's why I have it bulleted. I give 3 different specific things that I'm going to cover in this piece and sort of a little bit about how I'm going to cover them. And then, I'm open to how you might want to frame this story and would love to get your feedback if interested. So I like to do this open-ended, how you might want to frame this story, because I want to give them every opportunity to say yes. Maybe he likes the idea, but he doesn't totally love some of the topics I want to cover. I want to give him the opportunity to say, okay, this is a good idea, but here's what I might want you to focus on. That's what I would like to do. Some people don't want to do that. Some people are like, well, I want to be exactly what I want it to be. That's fine. You might not get as many opportunities, but that is how I did it. Now, again, I told you this pitch was not responded to, but I still think it was a good example of a pitch that I worked hard on, and I plan to repitch it and plan eventually to publish it. So when you see my article that I published about breakdancing on social media, you can remember you saw the pitch here first. So another cold pitch. This is for a small business or an organization. A little bit more boring, but here we go. I'm a big fan of the work, whatever the org is. I know how labor intensive it can be to keep up with online content. Experienced freelance writer who cares about your mission. And then I'm telling her what I offer. Here's what I can do for you. It will keep your website fresh. It will increase your presence on Google search. It will provide compelling content. And then I'm giving her some ideas of what those things are that I could do. And then I'm giving her some information about who I am, why my writing experience matters, and how it's going to contribute to their organization. Okay, so those are two examples of cold pitches. Let's talk about a warm pitch. So here's an example of a warm pitch. So this is a pitch from another freelancer that I found. And here's her, the way that she framed a warm pitch. So she puts nice to be connected because someone connected them, right? And so she's letting them know, I pitch stories to this magazine frequently. So that's like, they know, okay, she's someone that's familiar to us. We've published her before, even if this editor specifically doesn't know her that well. And so then she goes in and gives her story, her very specific details of that story. But you notice it's short. There's not a ton of information here. And she gives the editor, you know, the limited time they have to read it, the idea of what she wants to write about, and exactly what she's going to do. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Simple. You're not hanging your whole life on this. You're sending it off into the world and probably detaching from it and then moving on to the next pitch. Again, I'm going to send these pitches out to you so you can look at them in more detail. But I want to keep going so we can get through everything. This is another warm pitch. I think I have 3 warm pitches here. So this is a pitch that I sent, I believe. So I was saying, hey, how are you? I hope things are well. I just attended the conference that you were at, or that her organization was a part of, and it made me think I want to write something for this. So that immediately is like, oh, this person goes to our conference. Like, they obviously care about our work. So probably an idea that may have for the blog. Maybe I should give it a look. So I'm using that warm connection to lead up to my pitch. So then I give my pitch. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see how I use that warm pitch connection to sort of make that work for me. And then here's a warm pitch for an agency. This is a really long one, so I'll let you look at it later. But it will, yeah, I don't think we have time to go through this one, but look at it later. But again, just using any of those warm connections that you have. And then here's the hot pitch. So here is my editor at World Magazine. I'm pretty sure this is something I sent to him. So for my next pitch, I'd like to write something on the high depression and suicide rate of teens, which showed an increase in the latest studies to come out. I probably linked that study. And then I'm like, here's what I would say. Here's what I would talk about. What do you think? And usually my editor, when I pitch him something, he's like, sounds great, go for it. So that's a hot pitch. And then a hot pitch for a small business or org. This is somebody I used to work with. So I was pitching her to get some new work. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 talking about something unrelated to what I was pitching her for. And then I go into putting out some feelers, looking for some new work. Are you guys looking for anything? Do you know others that are looking for anything? And I will tell you that this did result in landing this pitch, and I got some great work out of it. So that's what you can get out of the hot pitch. Okay, questions. Okay, time for questions. I was like, I wasn't sure if we had more slides. So let me go to the chat. Actually, let me unshare screen and come back to you as a real person. Sorry. Okay. All right, cool. So questions, if you want to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, I will take them. And Kim, I don't know if there's been anything since I've been talking that I should answer. Did you see anything that I should answer that's been in the chat in the past 45 minutes or whatever? No? Okay, cool. Okay, who has a question? Michelle's raising her hand. Go ahead and come off mute if you want.
Yeah, sure. So nice to meet you officially, Erica. Good to be here with everybody. As far as like research for an article, like obviously you want to go as far as you need to go to get the information, but do you have like a rule of thumb on how much time you spend researching for an article?
I don't have a rule, but I don't spend a ton. Like I try to grab sort of the higher level bits that I can find. And I would say, I mean, if I was going to put it, I probably wouldn't spend more than like 30 minutes because you don't know that the story is going to get picked up. And you don't want to spend hours doing something that may not result in anything. And so I would say that usually you can find the research that you need to sort of make your point. And then in the pitch, what you would do is say, for this story, I will speak to this person. I will do more research on this. So you're showing them that you will do the work, and they understand that you can't write the whole story before the pitch because that doesn't make sense. So that's what I would say about that. Okay, who else has a question? Anything, guys? Anything that you've been working on? Do you have a story idea that you want some feedback on? Anything like that? No. Okay,
I have a
Anne,
question.
yes,
I
Anne.
will. Oh, sorry, Teresa.
Whoever
Um,
wants to go.
Okay, I'll be really fast. I've been a longtime copywriter and creative director for anything that you guys ate or wore or anything like that. I've done it all. But it's almost as if my occupation is eroding
Hmm.
because we're going into content writing, which is also, it's for me, I always say it feels like sex with the lights on. That's what it feels like. I'm just like, it's horrible. Like and everyone's like, okay, so now I have some Figma, now I have some Workfront, now I have some of these things. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. I
Mhm.
just want to do what the the POD, which is the point of difference, not Prince of Darkness. But but it's the points of difference. This is a unique selling proposition, and it doesn't have to be any more than that.
Mhm.
But I'm getting dinged because I'm not doing all these things that I don't want to do. So my jobs and my clients are kind of fading back because they're looking at the new shiny thing in the window. So I'm scared for the first time in 20 years that I won't have a job.
Yeah, I know that AI stuff is scaring people too, and that is understandable. I think, and I'm not an expert on the AI stuff, so I can't speak to that.
I took a 5-day class. I thought it was interesting. It's not relevant to me.
Yeah.
Everything I see, I'm like, I get it, but I don't really, I just, I'm not like an old lady where I'm like, this is the only thing I'm doing, but it's just
Yeah.
but it's like, they're almost just kind of like chucking us to the side of the road so
Mhm.
that the robots show in or the teenagers come in or something like that. I don't know. I'm just an ageist crabby
Yeah.
lady.
Well, I think, and again, this is also new and I don't have a ton of experience with it, but I guess my thought is just that we have to be adaptable to what's happening or we will fade away. I always use the example of Blockbuster. Like, they did not adapt to the era of streaming and now they don't exist, except for I think there's one store somewhere that's like a relic that people still go to. And so I am committed myself right now to learning more about these changes. I'm going to a big summit next week about how we can incorporate anything related to AI or anything new that's coming onto the scene, and figure out how to use it to our advantage. Because I do think that is the only way in the end,
Yep.
because we have to find ways to make it work. And I don't think it means that our jobs are going to go away in this sense. I think, though, that they might be different. And I think we might have to get more specialized or something like that. Like, I see people now doing a lot of
It's true. I never was specialized. We were generalized.
right.
One day you're working on pharma, the next day you're working on femcare, and then
Mhm.
you're looking at, candy bars and then pickup trucks the next day. So my
Yeah.
brain has been a racquetball core forever.
Yeah.
And I really like it, and I can't anymore.
Yeah, no, I get that. Some people love that, some people don't love that. So I think it's kind of maybe an experimental phase right now. I know that, a lot of the most successful freelancers I know do get very specialized. They are like in one particular niche, and so they do it very quickly. For me, it's like that whole balance of like doing the things you have to do the things you want to do. If I could not do some of the copywriting stuff I do, I would not do it. But because I need that income, in order to give me the freedom to do the writing that I enjoy, I've got to do it. And, there's a part of me that's a little nervous about some of this new stuff, but I know I'm not giving you like a satisfactory answer, but I do want to express solidarity and encourage you to just try to adapt and learn about what's happening. I mean, which you said you are. But I don't know
Yeah,
what else,
I mean, there's 5 women who are nodding their heads just as already support. That's
yes.
all.
Yeah. I think we all feel it. The changes, growing pains are not easy, but
Yeah.
we also sometimes look back and think like, oh, well, we didn't see that transformation in the good things that it brought to. So I don't know, maybe not satisfactory of an answer, but
Okay.
okay.
Thank
What
you.
else? Teresa, you had a question.
I did. So I just self-published a Bible study, and I actually had kind of stopped thinking about pitching for a long time because I was just like head down working on that. So my question is, obviously, it's a very niche thing. It's a Bible study on 6 women in scripture who were sexually broken and God's redemption and restoration of them. And so it's kind of I think it's kind of niche. So I'm thinking of places like Focus on the Family or Family Life Today or some other things. My question is this: if you're pitching to do articles, like obviously I would love to feature my book and say like, hey, here's this new author of this book. How do you go about crafting a pitch for that? Like, and an article even, would you put like little sections of the book in there? Would you just do something that kind of generalizes it? How would you recommend for somebody who is a new author and like, hey, I want to get that out there? What does a pitch look like for
Okay.
somebody like me?
So here's what I will say. Most places like don't really care about your book. Like that's like, and so here you have to be sneaky about it. So
Okay.
usually what I would do it, because I've done this a lot in the past year, because I had a book come out, is pitching ideas surrounded to and connected to the themes and things within your book. But you don't need to mention your book in the pitch. Like, because you having that book honestly doesn't really matter to them. Now, where you could mention it in the pitch is when you're doing I recently wrote a book on this, sort of like as an afterthought, like, because otherwise I hate, like, it almost seems like, oh, well, she's just trying to get publicity for her book, which you are, right? But
good to know.
but you don't want them to think that that's the main point, because the main point is about their readers and how it's going to bring, be of interest to their readers and bring them traffic. And so in that case, yes, you would want to mention it because that is relevant. Like you know what you're talking about. You wrote a book about this, right? But it's sort of like an afterthought almost. And so then when say they commission the piece, within the piece in your draft, you wouldn't want to see like, here's an excerpt from my book. You would want to do something like, as I wrote in title of my book, maybe you have a quote, you link to the book. Now, what the editor does with that, we don't know. Maybe they don't like that and take it out somehow. I don't think it just depends on what kind of editors you have, right? But I did that a lot. And then in your byline, whatever you get there, that's a great place. Usually you're allowed to do that. So, I pretty much every byline that I have right now, when I send and they're like, oh, send us a bio, it's always Erica Anderson is a freelance writer and the author of, and then I put my book. Cause like, that's all I want people to know right now. I don't like, if you know anything about me right now and I'm writing on a topic that's related to the book, I just want you to go to the book. I want you to buy the book. And so it's kind of just like, just having to be sort of sneaky in that way. So that's my answer to that question.
That is so helpful. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
great.
for sure. Someone else had a question, I think. I thought I saw a hand raised. Okay, let me see here if we had any in the, where do you find copywriting work? Somebody asked. So you find a lot of that so I had a list earlier in the slides of like a bunch of different places, including those email lists, Sonia Weisler's newsletter opportunities of the week, SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists. And then inside of Facebook groups, private Facebook groups that are just for freelancers, there is no end of actual copywriting work that you can actually find if you're keeping up with it. Like there would be too much to even apply for. So it's just a matter of limiting it down and then actually choosing what you want to try to get, because you can't apply for it all. And it's really honestly a never ending sort of need for all kinds of companies, even with all of these changes taking place. So that's what I would say to that. Any questions about any of the pitches we went over or any of the other things we were talking about? Okay, really quick. And I'm gonna share my screen again real quickly because there's 2 more things I wanted to talk about. It's always so confusing when I'm trying to share screen. So couple things for those that are here and then those that are watching the replay. If you're interested in learning more about some of this stuff, I know a lot of you already have seen me talking about this, but I just wanted to mention it. I've got my lucrative list freelance writing sites that pay. So that gives you just an easy access to that. And then Kim's going to drop the link to that in the chat. And then the secrets to getting published in the New York Times mini course, I have that available. If you get them together, it costs a little bit less, but those are just some resources if you want to learn more that are just sort of more low cost options. And then, oh, how did I get, hold on. I have one more thing. Don't leave. Somehow I have to scroll all the way back to the end of this slide deck because it went to the, I know I'm probably doing it wrong, but hold on. One more thing. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I'm opening the Bragworthy Bylines waitlist, so bragworthywaitlist.com. And so I know some of you have already taken it, so you can ignore this. But for those that haven't taken Bragworthy Bylines, get paid and published in 6 weeks, I'm launching again for September. And if you're on the waitlist, I'm going to open it early and have an exclusive, like bigger discount for anyone that's on the waitlist. So I cannot get back to this slide for the life of me, so I'm just not even going to try. But it is bragworthywaitlist.com if you want to just go, and it's just like put your name there. So it doesn't mean you're committing to anything. So check that out. And I see messages, so let me see here. Thank you, Kim, for putting that. Can you go back to the beginning slide on where you can get published? What? Oh, wait, I don't know which slide you mean. Do you mean in this, Whitney, do you mean in the thing I just showed or earlier in the slide deck? I don't remember. I will go ahead and send out to you guys who were here live. I'm just going to send you the slide deck so you can look through it. So we won't have to worry about that. But otherwise, I'm not seeing other questions. Does anybody, I don't want to run out if there are other questions. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. If not, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to send a follow-up email with a bunch of information. I'm so glad that you were here. Thank you for coming. I'm glad to meet some of you. Good to see old faces again, and I will see you again soon. See you later.